In the heart of the Great Plains lies Holcomb, Kansas, a town so small that everyone knows each other's middle names. Its streets are wide, dusty, and almost empty by night. Farmers work from dawn till dusk, children play in open fields, and the local diner closes only when the last customer leaves. It was November 15th, 1959, a night like any other. But the calm of Holcomb was about to be shattered forever. The Clutter family lived on a modest farm outside town. Herbert Clutter, the patriarch, was the kind of man people trusted immediately: honest, diligent, religious, and deeply committed to his family. Bonnie Clutter, his wife, struggled with mental illness, which made her delicate and fragile, but she adored her children. Nancy, 16, was bright, polite, and studious. Kenyon, 14, shy and introspective, loved tinkering with small machines and spending time in the fields. To anyone looking from the outside, this was the quintessential American family, the kind that would appear in magazines, stories, and dreams. Hundreds of miles away, Richard Hickok and Perry Smith were planning a crime that would haunt the nation. Hickok was charming, confident, and cold. He believed in shortcuts and easy money. Smith, by contrast, was deeply troubled, haunted by a violent childhood, and prone to emotional extremes. His past was littered with abandonment, abuse, and early brushes with the law. The two men were bound together by desperation, greed, and a shared dark curiosity. They had heard a rumor in prison from Floyd Wells, who claimed that Herbert Clutter kept a safe full of cash in his home. Hickok became obsessed with the idea. "This will be easy money," he told Smith. "We'll be rich by morning." Smith was hesitant, but he followed, and together they drove the long, empty roads toward Holcomb, oblivious to the horror they were about to unleash. The night was dark, cold, and silent. Snow had dusted the fields, and the wind whispered through the bare trees. The Clutter farm was isolated, more than a mile from the nearest neighbor, and the house, with its warm lights and closed doors, seemed a fortress. At around midnight, the two men quietly approached. They knew the Clutters were asleep. Hickok had even drawn a rough plan of the house. Inside, the family slept in the comfort of their routine. Bonnie Clutter, resting in her bedroom, was unaware of the danger creeping toward her. Nancy was dreaming peacefully in her bed, her books stacked neatly on her nightstand. Kenyon, like a typical teenager, had fallen asleep after reading in the living room. Herbert, meticulous as ever, had double-checked the doors and windows before going to bed. The intruders entered without alarm. They moved through the house like shadows. No one made a sound. They tied up Herbert in the basement. They bound Nancy in her room. Kenyon was restrained in another corner. Bonnie, frail and frightened, was left in her bed, trembling. They searched the house for money, overturning drawers and opening closets. Every step was methodical. Every sound of furniture scraping the floor echoed in the otherwise silent house. And then reality hit them. There was no cash, there was no safe, nothing at all. The plan that seemed so simple began to unravel. Hickok and Smith had invested so much time, planning, and risk, and it had all been for nothing. With no money to steal and no reason to leave witnesses, the killers made a decision that would shock the world. They would kill the Clutter family. What followed was unimaginably brutal. One by one, the family members were executed. Herbert Clutter was shot at close range in the basement, the sound echoing through the house like a nightmare. Kenyon Clutter was killed while trying to protect his sister. Nancy Clutter, a bright 16-year-old, was executed in her bedroom, surrounded by the books she loved. Bonnie Clutter, weak and defenseless, was killed in her bed. All for less than $50. The horror of that night shattered Holcomb. When neighbors arrived the next morning, the sight was incomprehensible. The house that had always been a symbol of safety and warmth had become a crime scene, frozen in a moment of pure terror. The Kansas Bureau of Investigation arrived quickly. Officers walked through the crime scene carefully, trying to reconstruct what had happened. They discovered that Hickok and Smith had acted with disturbing precision, yet left behind small clues. A footprint in the snow, a hastily discarded weapon, and most importantly, a story of a tip from Floyd Wells, the former cellmate. The officers quickly realized that the killers had made one fatal mistake. They had talked about the crime before committing it. The investigation unfolded like a horror story in real life. Detectives pieced together the killers' movements, motivations, and pasts. They followed leads to Las Vegas, where the killers were hiding, and eventually apprehended them without further incident. The trial was one of the most publicized in American history. Newspapers printed every horrifying detail. Families across the nation were riveted and horrified. Both Hickok and Smith confessed to the murders, describing the night with chilling calmness. The town of Holcomb could hardly bear the reality of the story. How could two men, strangers to them, slaughter an entire family with such cold detachment? After years of appeals and public debate, the killers were executed in 1965 at Kansas State Penitentiary. But the story lingered. Holcomb would never be the same. Doors that had once been unlocked were now bolted. Neighbors stared at each other with suspicion. The innocence of a small American town had been forever shattered. What makes this story even more haunting is that it was immortalized by Truman Capote. Capote spent years investigating the murders. He interviewed the killers, the investigators, neighbors, and even townspeople. He painstakingly pieced together every detail, every psychological nuance, every shadow and whisper of the night. The result was In Cold Blood, a book that redefined true crime and horror. It forced readers to face an unsettling truth. Sometimes, real life is far more terrifying than fiction. Capote himself said that he struggled to write it, haunted by the story for years, and anyone who reads it can feel the same chill. A reminder that terror doesn't always lurk in dark castles or haunted houses. Sometimes it comes quietly to the homes of ordinary people. The Clutter murders remain a chilling story of greed, violence, and human darkness. Holcomb, Kansas is a town that learned the cost of innocence lost. And for readers and viewers, the story serves as a grim reminder. Sometimes horror is not imagined, it is real. The Clutter family did not deserve their fate, but the memory of that night endures, a cautionary tale, a dark reflection of human evil, and one of the truest horror stories ever told.